So what does it mean to live life by design? So for me, living life by design means really being intentional and taking responsibility, not just for where I'm going, but how I'm showing up on a daily basis. Okay, that's what sets me up for where I want to go in the future. So for me, it's really the difference between life happening to me versus life happening for me, if anybody's ever heard that adage before. So it's living a life by design rather than by default. So when things happen for me, it's really by design. When things happen to me, it's almost as if the world is happening to me and it's not on my terms. When we live that life by default, what we do is we tend to find ourselves passively waiting for the things to happen in our life rather than taking massive action to get the results that we're looking for. I tend to find that my clients who are in this more default mode, they don't love making decisions. They'll often abdicate their own agency to others or let other external circumstances drive their decisions instead of making decisions themselves. The most simplest form here, living life by design, is all about backcasting. And that's a term that Annie Duke coined, but really thinking about putting yourself into the future and then turning around and looking at what it is that you need to create for yourself, asking yourself, what can I do today to put my future self in a position to live the life that I truly desire? Now, the problem with that is that we are very instant gratification driven. We're a dopamine seeking society. And part of that has to do with our primitive brain and what it's designed to do in order to keep us safe. We talked about that in one of our other sessions where our primitive brain was designed to seek pleasure, avoid pain, and conserve energy. But when we learn to delay that gratification, when we move toward the pain and expend energy now, the payoff down the road becomes that much greater. And we're able to live a richer, more fulfilling life. So if you were to spend any time with me outside in like our personal world, and people that know me well probably will laugh if folks are on the call here that they've heard me say this before. You might notice that I sometimes proudly will proclaim that like past Lindsay really set current Lindsay up for success. And I appreciate the fact that she took the time to think through what it is that I might be wanting in the moment. So sometimes it's for physical things, like when I'm standing at the top of a double black diamond ski run and I'm appreciating myself for the hours of Pilates that I did in the off season that are about to keep my knees safe. Other times it might be when we're camping, and I have to admit, I'm the person that will pull out the bougie milk frother to make my hot cocoa. But in that moment, I'm thinking like, gosh, I was an architect of that experience for myself, right? I had decided ahead of time that future Lindsay was really going to appreciate that cup of cocoa. So going back and thinking to myself and sometimes thanking myself for the work that I put in ahead of time, that's what then reinforces my behavior. It's really, rewarding for me to see that the effort that I put in ahead of time is going towards my current self. And it helps me to reinforce some of the times when I don't want to put in the effort on the upfront. Okay. So same goes sometimes for my upfront effort. So you'll hear me saying things like current Lindsay doesn't really want to do the laundry right now, but future Lindsay is really going to be grateful that she has the outfit ready to go for the next morning. Or future Lindsay is going to be so excited when she gets to the end of the year and she's met all of her goals because current Lindsay spent the time to sit down and map out the plan to get her there without much effort. So that's really what living life by design means. It doesn't have to be this grand plan for how you're going to live out your purpose. This idea of living life with intention and creating a path can be for the little things as well. It doesn't always have to be for these grandiose plans. It could be bringing us more pleasure just in the moment. Okay. So in its most practical form, I think that this is almost what manifesting is. A lot of people talk about manifesting, and sometimes people think it's a little woo-woo-y, but I looked up the definition because I was really interested in kind of the correlation here. And so here's the definition. Manifesting means using our thoughts, feelings, and beliefs to bring something into our physical reality. And I thought that was really interesting. I think that, for any of you who have been with me at least for a month now, last month's sessions were really focused on our thoughts and how our thoughts generate our feelings, and our feelings direct our actions or inactions, and that those actions then create our results. So they create a reality. So we're either living life by design, where we're intentionally designing what to bring into our reality, or what we're manifesting into our reality. Or on the other side, we could be living life by default. So we're still creating a reality for ourselves, but what we're creating might not necessarily be what we truly desire. So to live a life by design, we really need to spend time thinking about what we want to create. We need to put ourselves into that future state. We need to visualize what it is that we want to create that may be different from what we have today. And this truly can be uncomfortable for some. So this exercise, especially if you haven't practiced wanting from a place of abundance. So I have many clients where, as we sit down to do this exercise for the very first time, where we're trying to visualize that future, where they get stuck. And that's primarily because they say they don't know how to picture anything different than what they already have, or that it can be a little bit uncomfortable to picture what they don't currently have. And for most of us, when we first get started with this work, or if we are risk averse, or we've experienced loss or major setbacks in life, we might start thinking about the things that we desire that are different from what we have today, and we start to feel a twinge of pain or lack. So I want you to know that that's totally normal. So that's a process that you're going to go through as you start to think about this alternate reality. Now, I want you to stay here with me for a second. We might get a little mind bendy as I try to explain this, but I promise on the other side, it will make a lot of sense. So I want you to think about it. We've traditionally been programmed to want things that we don't currently have. Okay, so I want it because I don't have it. And because I don't have it, I might start to think about how much energy or how much time or money or pain it will take me to actually get the thing that I want. Okay. And when I have it, once I have it, I'm no longer thinking about it as something that I want. Now it's something that I have. Okay. Are you still with me here for a moment? Okay. So if I have it, therefore I no longer want it. So when we look at it at this very high level, wanting equals pain, having equals comfort. Okay. And if we remember back to our primitive brain wants to seek pleasure, avoid pain, and conserve the most energy that it possibly can. Okay. So the reason that we don't sit down and map out a life by design is because our primitive brain was designed to survive and not to thrive. And the good news is that we have our human prefrontal cortex that can override our primitive monkey brain and actually get to work. So how do we go about doing that? So what we have to do literally is that we need to practice wanting things that we already have. That way we can start to rewire our brain to see wanting as pleasure instead of pain. And this can happen really quickly because it's also a proven fact that dopamine, right, the neurotransmitter that's associated with pleasure, actually peaks during anticipation. So long as we can actually start to show ourselves that we have things that we want, then our brain will get to that place where it's on board with doing the work in order to get there. So that's kind of the process. It really comes down to believing that this is possible to have the things that we want. What we're going to do here is I want you to think about some things that you want that you already have. I also want you to think about some things that you want that you don't yet have. So go ahead and put down 2 things that you want that you already have, 1 thing that you want that you don't have, and then 2 things that you want that you already have. So kind of sandwich the thing that you want that you don't yet have in between the things that you have. Okay, does that make sense? All right, I'm going to give you an example. So two things that I want that I already have. One of them is a loving relationship with my partner, Corey. I want that, and I have that. Another is my dog, Tucker, who is very much kind of chilling right now, right? So those are two things that I want that I already have. The thing that I don't yet have that I want is a physical retreat out in the woods, a place where everybody can come, where you all can come and spend the weekend, and we can be in nature and we can have these types of conversations, and you can go deeper into your work, right? That's something that I want very, very deeply, but I don't yet have it, okay? Another two things that I have that I really, really want are a mid-century modern home that you see around you, okay? And then my own business. Those are two things that I really want, and I wanted them for a very long time. At one point in time, actually, they were on my list as things that I wanted, but I didn't yet have. So my mid-century modern home, my own business, those were on the list, and I had to work to manifest those. Because I got really great at wanting from this place of abundance, what happened for my brain, what my brain would tell me when I was in the moment was like, this isn't possible, or this is going to be hard, or I don't know what it is that I'm going to have to do in order to make this happen. But when those thoughts would come up for me, I would be able to silence them because I was wanting from this place of abundance. And I knew that I had the ability to create things in my life that I wanted. That gave me the opportunity to see that it was possible for me to bring those new things into my life. I got good at wanting from abundance instead of scarcity. So once we get good at that, once we've decided that, okay, yes, I can want from this place of abundance, I can start visualizing the future. And when I do so, it doesn't overwhelm my brain and make me think that it's not possible. Once we've done that, we can start to step into this next step. Okay. So we've opened ourselves up to abundance. We're starting to want a life maybe that's a little bit different than the one that you have today. In wanting that, it's really important to remember that you don't have to change the good in what you have today. It doesn't mean that you don't appreciate and love the life that you have today. It just means that you can go into this future place. In fact, when you start to operate from this place of abundance, as you can see from this exercise, it's almost the opposite. You have to appreciate the life that you currently have in order to put yourself in a position where you can continue to expand into that next version of yourself. Okay. So, in order to live that life by design instead of by default, you've got to find a way to appreciate the now and the future. So this work doesn't end here. That was, as I just mentioned, kind of the first step, the way that you get primed for the next step. What I want you to do over this next month is I want you to think about how you can create that future version for yourself. Okay, so dive into the worksheet that I've created for you. Start visualizing a future that you want to design. If you think about it like this, right? When you're using a GPS, there are two pieces of information that you need to put into that GPS. It needs to know where you're going, but it also needs to know where you are today. That's how it calculates the route for you. So if you don't have the awareness of where you are today, it can be really challenging for you to create a plan that's going to be able to be executed with any ease. So starting there would be helpful. So once you've taken a look at that, right, ask yourself the question, what are my core values? What are my core beliefs? What role does my value or my value system and my belief system play in the life that I want to design? Some other questions to ask yourself are going to be things like, what are the 10 things that I want to be able to do when I'm 100? So as Corey and I were driving to a conference this last week, we were listening to Dr. Peter Attia's book Outlive, and he was talking about the centenarian decathlon. And essentially that's the 10 things that you want to be able to do physically. Okay, so it's not necessarily pulling in any mind elements talking about anything other than your physical capabilities. So what you want to be able to do, things like getting up off the floor under your own support, or walking up and down 3 flights of stairs with a 10-pound bag of groceries in your hand, or lifting a 30-pound suitcase overhead in the bin on an airplane, right? So if you think about those 10 things that you really want to be able to do when you're 100, how do you then backcast into what you need to be doing today in order to make that happen? Okay, so I think that's a really interesting thing to be thinking about, because if we can go that far into the future, and if we're saying something like, I want to be able to lift a 30-pound bag overhead into the airplane by myself, I need to be able to today really lift like 75 pounds overhead by myself. So that's going to help you to decide, what do I want to achieve in the future? If you're just kind of throwing it out to chance, living life by default instead of by design, your chance of getting there, it's not going to be all that great. So you've got to put in the work now and the reps now in order for you to get where you want to go in the end. So thinking about where you want to be at 100. And then for everybody, since we've got a lot of different ages here in terms of the calls that we're doing, I wanted you to think about it in terms of, what do you want your life to look like 25 years from now? What do you want your life to look like 15 years from now? What do you want your life to look like 5 years from now? Okay, so when you think about what you want your life to look like, where are you spending time? Who are you engaged with? How are you moving your body? What are you doing to keep your mind healthy? How are you fueling yourself? What are you finding joy in? All of these areas are really important for us to think about. When we put ourselves into that future and we can get crystal clear, when we can close our eyes and see it so clearly. When I talk about that retreat that I want to have in the middle of the woods, when I close my eyes, I can see it. I can see it. I can see the stonework. I can see the wood. I can see the canopy of the trees, and I can see the brook along the side of the house. And I can see, and I can hear, I can hear the brook. I can also hear drums in the background, and I can hear laughter. And so being able to close your eyes and really visualize and feel into what you want that future to be like. Now, this is where we tend to have that twinge of pain. If you close your eyes and you can't see a future, it doesn't mean that you're broken. It means you haven't practiced it enough. And sometimes it feels a little bit silly to close your eyes and describe things in that much detail, but think about all of your senses as you're going through this process. Pull your 5 senses into the process and really dive deep into what you want to create. Okay, so as you close your eyes and you imagine your future self, some other questions to think about are, how do you show up? What does your future self value that might be different from what your current self values? What are you spending time on? What are you spending money on? What are you spending energy on? Those 3 things tend to tell you what you value, right? If you were to look at your spending today, what you spend your money on tends to show you what you value. What you spend your time on tends to show you what you're valuing. What you spend your energy on tends to show you what you value. So when you look at all of that, what I tend to see with my clients is that they will be spending their time, money, and energy in areas that when they look at their list of values, it's a complete mismatch. So that's great news, right? It's great that we figure that out, because then we can start to realign ourselves and decide, where do I want to be spending my resources? If these are the things that I value and I haven't been spending my time, money, and energy there today, how do I shift my resources to make that happen? Okay, so how closely is my current self aligned with my future self? What shifts do I need to make in order to start going in the right direction? And then what do I need to change? So is there something that I need to look at more acutely? Is there something that I want to dive deeper into? If there is, this is a perfect opportunity for us to do some one-on-one work. Right? If there's something that really does need to shift and you're struggling to shift it on your own, that's what we're here for, is to help coach you through those potential shifts that you want to be making. Okay. So thinking about what we need to do in order to take action, the last piece that I want you to consider, and all of this is inside of that worksheet that I've created for you. But once you've got a clear understanding of where you want to go, what you want to achieve, what's the truth about where you are today, think about the 10 habits on a daily basis that are absolutely critical for you to complete in order for you to just get where you want to go. Okay, so you can start taking a look at the different areas of your life, whether it's financial, whether it's physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, your personal environment, and you can pick 10 habits that are kind of the non-negotiables. So for me, it's going to be things like gratitude daily. That's one thing that's a non-negotiable. It's happening no matter what. Nobody needs to know it's happening, but I'm doing it every single day. Think about the things in your life that are absolutely a must do and the non-negotiables, and that's where you're going to end up with your 10. Okay. This work is not meant to be easy. It's meant to make you think. So I want you to carve out time on your calendar to actually put an appointment in there with yourself so that you can get this work done. If you do, I promise you that you're going to start to see amazing results.